I'll just get us started. Thank you all for registering and for joining us today for our webinar about scenario modeling. My name is Sarah Bullock, and I'm joined today by David Pedrick, our product manager for HERS products. And I'm also joined by folks at Performance Point. So we have Sam Galfin on the call, who is the owner, as well as Sandy Coney, who is an energy program compliance technician, as well as Michael Ellis, who is their planned services product group manager. So today, kind of the run of show, we'll go over a brief demonstration of scenario modeling, kind of explaining the tool. And then after that, David will start off with some questions for the Performance Point team. And after that conversation, we'll be opening up questions to the audience. So feel free as we're talking today to throw your questions in the chat. We'll try to get to as many of them as we can at the end. And with that, I'll pass it off to David.
All right, thanks, Sarah. Glad everybody's on the call today, and I'm super excited to talk to Performance Point today about how they've been using scenario modeling. I recently kind of wrote a blog that summarized some of the results and some of the analysis that had been done in the past year using scenario modeling. And when I was doing that analysis, we saw over 5,000 energy models had been analyzed, and 200 builders had energy models that had been analyzed with scenario modeling. And one of the things that I noticed in there was that the number one and most frequent user of scenario modeling so far, and very quickly became the number one user, was Performance Point. So they have really been using it a lot to answer their clients' questions about how homes could be built differently, or what if the home was built differently using scenario modeling. So I'm super excited here to talk to Sam, Michael, and Sandy about how they've been using it, and to learn kind of like why they use it, what kinds of questions they're answering using scenario modeling, how they would have answered those questions previously, and how they're doing it now, and kind of the general impact of scenario modeling, while also giving them an opportunity to say if there's any tips or tricks that they've learned, or things that they can't do with scenario modeling that they would like to be able to do with scenario modeling. So everybody can learn from them and kind of see where the leaders are right now to using the tool. Before we do that, just so we're all on the same page, I'm going to do a quick demo of what scenario modeling looks like, so everybody can kind of understand what we're talking about. So on my screen right now, I have the Ekotrope Radar app open, and I'm going to select a few energy models. So you can select one energy model or up to 1,000 at a time. I'm going to select just 5 here and go into scenario modeling using the button right down here on the lower right-hand corner. And the first thing I'm going to need to do here is open up the design changes and select a design change. So this is any kind of thing where we want to change the specification that is currently in that energy model. The first thing to do here, I'm just going to select a couple here. So I'm going to say select a wall, and this is going to allow me to change the existing wall type with this new wall type. So I'm going to say what happens if I modeled all of the homes with a 2x6 R19 wall plus R5 continuous. This is just a component that we've made that somebody's made in Ekotrope here that we're going to use in this scenario. The one thing that we've recently added is the ability to apply this change to specific components. You can either say change all of the walls to this, or you can say just change the walls that are between interior and exposed exterior, so that you can make changes to exposed walls, your garage wall, or your party wall, or all of the walls all at once. You can do other design changes. I'm going to show just another quick example of mechanical equipment. So you can say just change the heating system of the home. So for example, maybe you want to model an electrification plan for a builder and say, we're going to model an air source heat pump in this home. We're only going to change the heating systems in the home, and we're going to update it to HSPF of 10. and leave everything else kind of here the same. I'll say it's a split system. So you can model those specific equipment changes as well that are just setting the efficiency of the system and keeping the capacity of the system the same. So you know you're setting it to the right sized equipment. You can also do this for domestic hot water and mechanical ventilation and AC systems. So once you have those design changes, you can make up to 15 of them at once. You can group those into scenarios. So you can select all of them at one time, or model them individually, or whatever combination that you'd like. And finally, you pick how you want to analyze these. Do you want to see the change in the HERS index? You can select HERS index, or if you want to see change in a particular rebate program, we were taking requests on what rebate programs to support. We added the Hero rebate program here for Performance Point when they got started because they work a lot in North Carolina, and that's important to their builders. And so you can pick about anything here that you would like. Finally, you review, make sure everything's right, and you finish and submit this project. Once this is running, it takes anywhere from a minute to 20 minutes, maybe. 20 minutes really on the long end to process the results. If you're doing a really big project, it'll send you a results spreadsheet in your email, and then you can manipulate and use that spreadsheet to present to your client or make the decision of which one of these scenarios achieves the best result for your builder, or which one you can report to your builder, hey, this change, this value engineering change did not cause any problems for code compliance or what have you. And so feel free to go ahead and make that change. So we just saw the results were emailed to me. I'm not going to go into that right now because it takes a little bit of shifting around here. And we're going to transition to talking to Sam, Sandy, and Michael. So with that, Sam, could we just start off by you giving us a little bit of an introduction to Performance Point, kind of where you guys work, what kind of services you provide, just so people can kind of understand where you're coming from in terms of what type of rating organization you are.
Sure. Performance Point, we kind of describe ourselves as a full service trade partner in that we provide inspections related to energy compliance, above energy code programs like Energy Star, other certifications along those lines. We do quality inspections and all kinds of different quality inspections and framing and fit and finish, things like that, and many different kinds of specialty inspections. So that's kind of who we are. And we operate mostly from Virginia, a few markets in Virginia, down through Atlanta, and over all throughout Tennessee. On the single family side and on our multifamily side of our business, we have pretty much gone all over the place for multifamily projects.
Great, thanks, Sam. So to start off, you've been using scenario modeling for a handful of months now, and could you kind of tell me what kind of services you're providing with scenario modeling? Are you answering particular types of questions, providing some sort of service as an add-on? Kind of what's the use case for you, for your clients?
Sure. So we've had a couple of things that really drive our use of scenario modeling right now that are driving them especially. One is the transition to Energy Star 3.1 and the need to analyze a lot of different plans across a lot of different markets for that. Most of our builder clients are building, 25 to 2,000 homes a year. And so most of the time we need to be able to analyze several different plans at a time. We can't just go with one or two plans. We're looking at 5 or 10. And so we'd be looking at compliance for Energy Star 3.1. As you mentioned, the Hero rebate program, that's a big deal. There's a couple of versions of that. We also are in a couple different climate zones. So that kind of complicates things and creates the need to do all the work you did in one climate zone to then go do it in the other climate zone. And we have a lot of markets here that are, even in the Charlotte area or any given area, they might be all electric or they might be gas electric mix. And so community by community, that tends to vary what equipment and specs people have available for trade-offs. And all that together leads to a lot of energy modeling.
Right. Yeah. Like North Carolina has a lot of climate zones. You have some mountains, you have the coastal. So there's a lot of different nuance there. Sounds like scenario modeling allows you to kind of respect that nuance with your clients a little bit. So they are getting something that's tailored to them, to their community a little bit better.
Right. And I know pretty much as an energy rater before we started using scenario modeling, when you look at the amount of work it takes to do that amount of modeling, different trade-offs for different climate zones and different fuel types, what we would end up doing to try to get that amount of modeling completed is squeeze down the number of different plans we would look at, or make some assumptions on what might work here, might also work there, because it's very time consuming to go through and make changes and run a model one after another. And you just simply may not have time for that.
Right, right. So it sounds like you're doing some compliance planning with your builders. There's the new code, new rebate coming up, and you're helping them figure out how to get to there, which is like something I've seen other people do as well. Are there other types of analysis that you're doing for your builders that are kind of less something that you can plan for and that you know is coming down in the future, that is a little bit more impromptu?
Yeah, we've had the opportunity to work with one of the major equipment manufacturers to HVAC equipment manufacturers to get specs started going with a number of builders to help them figure out how to stock their distribution pipeline with equipment. So when you're looking at production builders in a couple of different markets needing, 2, 3, and 4 ton units, and they know most of our builders in this area are going to be Energy Star. What products do we need to stock? That allows us to go in and really do a lot of detailed modeling with a lot of different plans in all these different climate zones that one distribution facility may cover, and help them dial in, the 4, 5, 6, whatever it is, models that they need to stock. That really came into play with the DOE phase out of 14 SEER going to 15 SEER.
Yeah.
A lot of builders also trying to meet 3.1 along with that.
Oh, wow. That's something entirely new. You're helping the BPM or building product manufacturers figure out their supply chain a little bit better, because you can help them know which products builders will need. That's super unique. Are builders coming to you with like value engineering questions as well? So like if the supply chain isn't there and they can't get a product and they're like, okay, can I swap this out for that and still meet energy code?
I would say that's a daily question. Yeah, we get that a lot. And it happened a lot during COVID when one of the things that impacted our area was vinyl windows. And we had a lot of different window shortages in our area. And we also had one of the first things that we kind of lost, so to speak, was radiant barrier. A lot of builders could no longer get radiant barrier. And so it's this race to start figuring out trade-offs that would work against these different things that they couldn't get because their supply chains were messed up.
Yeah. So now if a builder calls you up and say, I can't get radiant barrier, it's a relatively, you know, silly, it's like an easy thing to tell them, like, oh, this is exactly what the impact will be.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Very good. Yeah. So you kind of started to talk about in the past how you would have done this and how like tedious it was to go through, and you would make some assumptions on like, if we do this here, that probably works for those locations there, but you weren't able to test that definitively. And what's like what's your concern with not being able to test it in all locations? You're probably using those assumptions for a long time and probably had lots of years of experience using those assumptions. So years of experience to fine tune those. But kind of what was your concern using that?
Yeah, that, it one of the things internally that we would say, and even externally to our builders, what we wouldn't necessarily hide the fact that we were using assumptions because of time constraints. And that would be one thing that we would, tell builders and internally as well, just that we're going to have to make some assumptions. You're going to have to trust our experience on that. And it really came down to, at that point, who could make the call on what set of assumptions you used versus one person's opinion or another person's opinion. And it always led to kind of a bottleneck, taking a process that was already long and arduous and making it even more, now you add conflict into it.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of tended to be using its assumptions. While it would speed things up, it had its own set of drawbacks. Not to mention the fact that you couldn't really ever dial anything in exactly because you had to make assumptions. Forget the fact of trying to do what we're doing with some people now that we probably would have never undertaken, which is community level specs. So a builder, we could help them kind of dial in their specs community by community, because they may be doing different product in one community versus another. We can really help value engineer what one set of plans gets versus another set of plans across town.
Yeah. That's a lot of specificity that the builder has access to now. So kind of how long would it take you in the past to do the analysis, even with those assumptions baked in?
Any given builder, any given trade-off or set of trade-offs, I mean, you're talking about days, if not a week, probably of, it's a process of entering a bunch of design changes into a model, creating copies of that model, making more design changes, and then recording your results in a spreadsheet, and then going and doing that on the next one, then going and do that on the next one. And, sometimes you would get to the end, that last plan, and realize, oh, this set of trade-offs doesn't work. And I was kind of banking on that to be my set of trade-offs I was going to hand this builder. And now I see it doesn't work for this last plan. And so now you're starting all over again, going back through all the plans, seeing, well, now what if I adjust floor insulation? And then it's just a, incremental one model at a time, running that, recording those results all over again, and kind of doing that. That would be the way we would do that previously. And generally going through that process, even for somebody with a little experience, would take days with a good chunk of models.
Yeah, and it's probably one of your more experienced people doing that work as well.
Yeah, you're taking an experienced person who you would love to have them training and advising and supervising and checking quality, and now they're just plugging and chugging on a spreadsheet and waiting for quick results.
Yeah. So today with scenario modeling, that same kind of process that took days or weeks to analyze, what does that look like today?
Today, I mean, you could answer that same kind of question in a couple of hours. Probably, I would say a couple of hours start to finish. And this probably gets into another question, but starting, you still are probably going to want to put your hands on all those individual models a little bit to start the process off, and make sure all the things that you think are in that model are in that model. The models are all in the right climate zone you're going to be doing. You may have mixed fuel types in the model, but you can change that in scenario modeling now, but you kind of want to check lights and appliances, things like that. Change the names of all those models. And then it's just a matter of selecting those models in your main screen there in Ekotrope, and starting to do the scenario modeling, plugging in the scenarios you want to see. That can be done in a couple of hours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that kind of pre-work is familiarizing yourself with, making sure all your tools are in place, making sure like everything is clean and ready to go before you start the project. And that's stuff you would do if you're doing it by hand or by scenario modeling. But maybe there's an opportunity to make scenario modeling a little bit better to help you do that as well.
Well, and once you've done that for a builder, you don't have to do that again. So now if they don't like that set of trade-offs, I don't have to invest that time all over again. It's all done. I can just start plugging away with other trade-offs. And so to make subsequent design changes or scenario changes, you're talking about, minutes at that point just to check and see something different.
Right. Yeah. So your builders are always asking for stuff in very tight timelines, either because they need to sell the home or have a permit deadline or something. So it comes back to you to answer that question. How do you think your builders have noticed this change? Or is it mostly something that you're just more comfortable being able to deliver on that timeline that the builder wants?
I don't know that the builders have noticed that change. I don't know that we even let them know that we're uncomfortable when they ask us to turn a huge set of results around overnight either. I don't know they're picking up on any of that, but
yeah, you're a duck above water and pedaling furiously underwater.
Exactly. That's right. So yeah, I don't know that our builders have noticed that difference necessarily. I would say Sandy and I dealt with one very recently where a builder had product already going vertical in the field. They emailed us, like, I think they emailed at like 6 o'clock at night, and they were like, hey, by the way, we can't get tankless water heaters in this community. It's got to be all electric. I need to know in the morning if I've got to get different equipment. And previously that would have been me or Sandy or Michael spending hours and hours plugging away into the night, trying to figure out, will all of these homes pass with X, Y, and Z trade-offs? But honestly, I waited till the next morning. I came in first thing and just kind of ran a scenario or two because I already had their models set up, mm-hmm. and had them their results very quickly. So I don't know that they would have noticed one way or the other. The bags under my eyes, A versus, being ready to take on the next task with method B. But yeah, that is a huge difference on our end with our comfort and confidence in providing results to builders.
Yeah, so the little duck feet underwater aren't, churning quite as quickly. It's a little bit more calm and steady to keep your builders happy.
Yeah, exactly.
So the other question though is like you're giving them a little bit more specificity at least, or saying there's fewer assumptions in this, what we're telling you. So it sounded like before there's conflict, whereas like, is the assumption that we're suggesting accurate and do you trust it? And so that piece of conflict or friction may not be there. So have things gone smoother as a result of that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we're seeing that the trade-offs we put in for version 3.1 are resulting in homes that pass 3.1. For an example, North Carolina is also in the middle of a debate about code changes, and we have been approached by a number of builders of ours wanting to know what's it going to take us to meet this new code. Should we fight it? Should we be friendly to it? Scenario modeling has allowed us to have very open dialogue with them about all the different little things here and there. And I haven't felt like I needed to charge for that. So in the past, I'm not saying that I would have, but I would have felt like we got to charge for all this extra modeling we're doing for this builder, because it's taking a very experienced person a lot of time. They're not focused on other things. Whereas now it's kind of, seems to meet the price point they expected, which was free. So
yeah, well, we know builders. We haven't really talked about multifamily. You guys do some multifamily work. Have you used scenario modeling in the multifamily world?
I'll be honest, I have not used scenario modeling in multifamily. We have only just recently started using Ekotrope for multifamily.
Okay.
And one of the reasons we are now using Ekotrope for multifamily is the ability to do scenario modeling, because it does provide a good advantage over the competition for checking design changes.
Yeah. I've had some other people talk to me about multifamily because a lot of HERS ratings multifamily are like affordable housing, LIHTC funded projects that have like specific targets and the long design phase and lots of iterations on the design. And scenario modeling has helped them kind of iterate on that with the designers as they go. But it's interesting to kind of hear that perspective from you as well. So are there wish list items that you wish like scenario modeling could do?
Yeah, in fact, you showed one of them that I was excited to see, and I haven't used yet, was the ability to apply a scenario to only certain envelope components, for example. I think that you showed. That was one that we had, and that's impactful because prior to that, we would have to say, look at the plans for that house and go, there's this much 2x6 wall, there's this much 2x4 wall, and let's kind of average it around to this, and then make our scenario reflect some upgrade of that. Whereas now we can apply a change only to the 2x6 portion or only to the 2x4 portion. So that's really a big deal. We'd love the ability to build a library of scenarios and be able to apply those. Sandy and Michael, do you guys have others that you have kind of on your wish list?
Yeah, it's exactly what you said. The wall component selecting a certain one is great. The saving those scenarios of what you're going to change most often, definitely a huge one. Right now, nothing else I can think of. A lot of what we've kind of presented to you in the past, you've implemented, just like adding in Hero as one of the results we can see.
Yeah, so we just released that the kind of being able to specify the component location, and we are planning on being able to like have a saved building design library or scenario, or not building design, design change library, so that you can kind of have your typical things you model easily accessible, so you can say, yes, this is the one we want to do. The other thing that we're planning on adding is allowing that kind of library to be accessible in the batch modifications area as well. So once you find the scenario that you like, you can go to batch modifications, just say, yes, go ahead and make that change to those energy models. That way, kind of everything's full circle. You analyze it, and then you apply it if you like it. That's super helpful. And we're always open to hearing feedback and working to figure out what that exactly means and adding that into the tool. And Sarah, if there's any questions from the audience, I'm prepared to start taking those and helping answer audience questions. But until then, Sam and Michael, you talked about just being more comfortable meeting your builder expectations on a time frame that's not like, making you stay up all night to do analysis. And that sounds like kind of a really key value of this tool to your team. It's like general happiness and being able to sleep at night. Kind of how has that impacted your guys' work? Is it just happier to be at work, or what is it?
Yeah, it's definitely, made some of the workflows easier. Not spending an entire week working on a specific customer to try and get back results to them by the end of the week. And so it's really freed me up to kind of work on other things, get training with people. And like another thing with it is, it is one that's, when you first look at it, it's a little hard to understand how to use it. But once you go through it a couple times, you learn it. You realize it's really helpful and pretty easy to use. And I feel like it's been easy to teach others how to use that as well. Sandy is one of our newer guys, and he's picked up on it pretty easily. So allows me to kind of move some of this stuff off to him and work on other things.
Yeah, so expanding your team's capability and capacity to do this analysis to more team members and distribute that workload a little bit more efficiently, possibly. All right. Well, I see one question from a audience member about, is there a way to get to work one-on-one with a HERS rater to run through some scenario modeling on a single family home for one individual home with an Ekotrope expert? This sounds like a great lead for you, Sam. Maybe we can connect you guys.
Sure. Yeah. That's a huge part of what we do, is being able to advise people on trade-offs, design changes, value engineering, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll reach out to this person to see if they would like to be connected and try and make that happen. All right. Another question we have over here. How has it impacted your discussions around like comfort and indoor air quality with builders, designers, or homeowners? Has it impacted it? Has that come into your conversation at all?
I wouldn't say it has changed the conversations that we, were having before that. Other than, again, just having a comfort level of being able to check more options. So, you know, as great of a tool as Ekotrope is and many of the other things that we use, none of them really suffice to kind of predict comfort or indoor air quality or even, you know, moisture problems or things like that. So we would still have all of those kinds of conversations and bring all those design ideas into scenario modeling just the same.
Yeah. And has there been anything that has like surprised you about, you know, a result or a change in your workflow as a result of scenario modeling?
Yeah, I mean, how freely we'll check something now. You know, in the past, you might have had an assumption that you might check on a plan or 2 plans. Now you might check that assumption against 20 plans.
Yeah.
That is a very, that gives you a lot of information to work with. In fact, just the way the scenario modeling results are presented, you know, gives you a lot of information to work off of. So that's even in itself a helpful tool to kind of help fine tune what scenarios you should be kind of chasing down.
Yeah, that sounds like it's a double-edged sword. If you're working on assumptions before, now you're challenging those assumptions, which may either validate it or disvalidate it. And then if it disvalidates it, then you're kind of having to reevaluate what you're going to do. However, you're preventing actual home being the problem that you have to face, and you're challenging yourself and not having to have that friction or that problem with your client.
Yeah, and ultimately you're saving yourself a headache later. If if you know a certain piece of equipment, HVAC equipment, will get a builder to pass whatever their goal is, you're going to recommend that, even if there's one that might get them there, or a set of 2 or 3 different trade-offs they could consider that may be a much lower cost. And whenever you kind of go with that more nuclear option as a HERS rater, you are leaving the door open for your competitor to come in and say, well, you don't have to do that. I can get you there just by doing X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
That kind of helps us make sure that when we're presenting model trade-offs and things like that to our builders, that we are, you know, always able to at least present them with 1 option or 2 options that is the lowest cost, even if they're more difficult to execute. It also allows us to add what I think is maybe the most important thing, which is kind of a future value of being able to continuously analyze where they are, what they're doing, and what other things they might do. So let's say we're 2-3 years in and we're looking and seeing, oh, they're hitting 2.5 ACH regularly. What if we bring that assumption into our modeling now and say, what could we start to get rid of? That might be, you know, a future value that would be difficult without scenario modeling.
Great. Yeah. This has been super fun. I've learned a lot more this time around as well. So I want to say thank you for taking your time to share your guys' experience and knowledge, and obviously kind of industry leading knowledge and service that you provide your builders. Sounds like you're providing incredible service, but even before scenario modeling, and you're maintaining that, but being able to do it with a little bit less effort this time. So I'm happy to see that, and hopefully we're able to kind of convince more builders to do more HERS ratings by providing this better service across the industry, and continue that market share growth of HERS ratings in the new home home builder market. So I appreciate your time, Sam. And with that, Sarah, do you have any wrap-up notes?
Nothing on my end. Just want to say thanks to everyone for joining today. For as far as all the folks who registered, we'll be sending out a recording of this if you want to rewatch it on your own time. So look out for that in a few days or so. And yeah, like I said, thank you all for coming, and thank you, Sandy, Michael, and Sam for joining us today and sharing your insights. Definitely feel like I learned a lot. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Awesome. Bye, guys.
Thank you, Performance Point.
Thank you.